Welcome back. I'm Kathy Zalewski.
And I'm Kaila Henry, and we're realtors in Bozeman, Montana with Realtor One Group Inc.
Yes.
So today we are talking about writing an offer for buyers and how we like to do it, and then maybe some of the back end stuff that we as realtors are doing on behalf of our buyers.
Excellent. Yes. So what I like to do the first time I meet buyers, before we're even starting, well, I guess when I meet them to show them their first house, I usually hand them a packet, and inside of it is all the documents required to write an offer. And the reason I like to do that up front is because you get excited about something and it's go time, and I am not going to count on you actually reading through the 11-page offer buy sell when you're excited about something. I would much rather have you look through it at your leisure and underline, highlight, circle, do whatever you want. The next time we get together to go look at houses, I can answer any of the questions that you might have, but you will understand what it takes to buy a home once you look at all that paperwork.
It's so important to feel like you can get a grasp for it early because, again, when it's go time, there's going to be a lot of other moving pieces going on. So the more, again, you can get to up front, the better it will feel when you are ready to make that next move.
So basically, when I'm getting ready to write an offer for buyers, we've gone looking at houses so they understand the market. They understand what, wow, this house seems like a great value to us based on the other homes that we've seen. Excuse me, I say there's about 4 or 5 things that I need to know up front to write your offer. The first of which is who's buying the house, what names are going to be on title, not necessarily how you're going to hold title, but I do need to know who's buying the house. Go ahead.
And a little trick we often do, because sometimes people are like, well, we might want to hold it in a trust, or we might want to hold it in an LLC. To me, I always then like to just say, well, let's put your name and we'll do or assigns. Very easy to then move it into whatever entity you may choose to while we're under contract.
Yep, absolutely.
So rethinking a little bit to try and make it easier.
Yep. So name, who's buying the property. Number 2, of course, purchase price. And again, like I said, we've been looking at homes. So those are, generally speaking, the comparable properties that we would look at in terms of value and what's on the market. Now, we might have some sold data that you wouldn't be privy to that we can confirm that we're in the zone.
That's one of those, I'm going to say, a little bit behind the scenes, something that a realtor to me is doing, and that we're obviously communicating with you about where we think the value is for this home. But then I always like to say, you know what, let's say I think what they're asking is reasonable, but I do want to go back in front of my computer and I want to check that sold data, because to me, sold data is the most valuable data for any sort of offer types. It's proving what the market is actually doing. So
if your appraiser is going to look at
exactly
when they do the appraisal for your loan, so that we have that information. So we like to look at that. We'll work together to confirm the purchase price for the property. So that's point number 2 of information that I need when I'm going to write you an offer. Number 3 will be earnest money.
Typically 1% of your purchase price.
Yep.
So 6, 7, 10 grand, something along those lines. I do think when you get to that $1 million+ mark range, oftentimes maybe it's about 2%, because you typically have that money already. And
cash,
so I do feel like we'll have a little higher higher earnest money in some of those areas.
Yep. And remember, earnest money is your skin in the game. It's
almost like you're serious. You are not just, because again, writing an offer, I can write an offer for anybody off the street. I won't, because I like to vet people and make sure that they're serious, but you can really just, anybody can write an offer, and providing that earnest money is the seller's promise, or gosh, how do you say this? It's your skin in the game.
It's the level of interest you have in buying the property.
Well, I do think the Montana buy-sell is really geared towards protecting buyers. It heavily favors buyers, just in its boilerplate, in its standard form. So, to me, a buyer is only going to lose their earnest money if they mess up their dates or just mess around.
Fail to perform. Usually that has something to do with they went out and bought a brand new car before their loan was closed, or quit their job.
Even quitting their job, I do think falls under,
because it was intentional.
I know, I don't agree with that, but you think that's how it read.
How can buying a car not be intentional? So anyway,
we digress.
There are some things that buyers can do that would lose them their earnest money, but that would be ill-advised, and usually A realtor like Kaila or I are advising against that from the very get-go, and also your lender will be telling you don't quit your job,
And
don't buy a car.
And to me, again, that's why we advocate for working with true professionals, right? Just so that you have people that are very familiar with those dates and the contractual terms that you're agreeing to, so you're not just winging it by yourself.
So earnest money is the number two. I will say, side note, if the earnest money is large, let's say I'm working with somebody that's buying a $10 million ranch and they're going to put down $1 million earnest money. Well, I've got to have proof of funds for that earnest money, sometimes even 50K or 100K. If that's the earnest money that they're putting down, you might want to get a proof of funds to show that they have that liquid, because the check will be cashed. And then also, if you do have a cash deal, it doesn't even matter if it's for 300,000. Proof of funds on a cash deal is usually a good way to go up front. So I would be advising you as a buyer, hey, be prepared to show me the account.
A letter from your financial advisor, something that we can say that you do have these funds and they are available to purchase real estate.
Not necessarily liquid, but that they're available.
Can be liquids. I think too, the other thing, again, that earnest money, it is cashed not by the seller or by any of the realtors. It's held at the title company, which is a neutral third party.
But they do cash it. They don't just hang on to your check. It goes into an escrow account.
Correct.
So you have to have the money in your bank account. Please do not bounce an earnest money check. Thank you. So
I think the final thing is going to be closing date. Or maybe not the final thing, but that's the next big thing.
The next big thing is definitely a closing date. So Kaila said earlier, as a buyer, get your calendar out. Are you going to be out of town? Do you have to go to your grandma's 90th birthday party? Whatever.
Can you take the day off of work to be able, because you do need to physically sign documents. Again, there are some, let's say, variances to these rules that we're laying out. Sometimes if it's cash purchase, oftentimes if it's a cash purchase, you can electronically sign documents. But just a good idea to at least have that conversation with your realtor and make sure that you can physically be at the title company to sign documents.
Right. I will also say, in terms of closing date, I have had it where some people were liquidating a 401k account, and so backs to do the purchase. So backstepping that, if that takes a certain amount of time to liquidate that, let's say it'll take 2 weeks for those funds to actually be available to you, you need to count that time. Moving the closing date, while it's not impossible, it's not cool. Sorry, it's not cool. So let's try and plan ahead as best we can so everybody's shooting for the same time zone. There are a lot of people working on your behalf as a buyer to make sure that everything goes according to plan, and that plan is based on that close date. So as a buyer, take out your calendar. Let me know if you're going on vacation, if you're going to grandma's, whatever. If you have mandatory continuing education and you're not going to be able to leave your job during that day or whatever, then let's move it around.
Be available on that date, and then obviously making sure that whatever current living situation you're in either overlaps that date some so that you have time to move. Just being cognizant of, again, the logistics that go into moving, because of course that's what you're going to end up doing.
Whew. So close date is probably number 3 most important. And I think there's a lot of boilerplate. It's an 11-page document. The next part of the offer would be tied to inspections, all sorts of inspections, any kind of inspection you want to do, and not limiting to making sure that the title company does their inspection on the title that's available for the property and how that deed has changed hands, right? So there are several different dates in there. Realtors like Kaila and I know what is fair and to be expected in this market. So for an inspection, we'd probably put a date of 2 weeks and maybe 3 to 5 days for the seller to respond to us from our inspection notice. Usually we want title commitment within 5 days. Then we'd also have an insurance commitment, but that usually would be before close date.
So usually, again, I really like to have our inspection notice date, so otherwise known as the notice date. That would be, again, about 2 weeks out. And then your resolution date, a couple days, just like you said, Kathy. I think that's usually what we're shooting for. Again, if it's a larger property, maybe a ranch or something along those lines, you might need some extra time. But of course, taking that on a case-by-case basis. The title contingency, that is typically just a number of days once the title company provides you with the preliminary title policy. And you just want a couple days to review that to make sure that there's nothing that is crazy or outstanding. Occasionally, we have had at one time where there was an old outstanding note on it that we had to figure out how to get cleared. So I would say pretty uncommon, but still things can come up that you want to be reviewing and checking in with that.
Right.
And then appraisal, that to me is another big one where you want to have property appraising for your purchase price.
Right.
My one thing where I would deviate with that is if it is a bidding war and you're offering over asking, it is not the seller's responsibility to cover that gap. So I always recommend that my buyers be willing to do that, because again, I think any good agent would never have their seller agree to potentially
Right.
covering any sort of gap in appraisal.
Right.
Something we saw back in 21, 22 when it was really crazy.
So I think those dates that we just went over are dates that Kaila and I have got a good handle on what's typical and what's average and what's doable. I guess that's about it. I think appraisal is usually given 3 weeks because sometimes people don't order their appraisal until after they're through inspection. Before they spend another $450, $500, $600, $700 on an appraisal, they want to make sure that we've come to terms on what inspection items may need to be repaired, or if a proper or reasonable credit is given instead. But all of those dates are things that we will certainly discuss with you, but we have good reasons for putting them at the time.
There's a reason we recommend them, right? So just know that it's because of experience, market knowledge, that we're recommending either a certain amount of days or specific dates on that buy sell.
Right. And then I think the last thing that we'll talk about is the response time that we want on the offer. So typical, I think very typical, is 24 hours. Now, if for some reason you need a response time quickly because maybe you want to decide between this home and another home, and if these people aren't going to go for your offer, then you want to move on to the next one, well, that's okay, and it's a strategy. But if a lot of times things can get revived pretty easily, so we want to make sure that we're protecting you in terms of what your wishes are. If you just want to really give these people only 6 hours to respond because you like this other house better anyway, well, then let's play that game.
And I think that response time to me is so market dependent, right? So in a really crazy market, you can't maybe really force a seller's hand. You're just going to give them the time they need and hope that they like your offer best because it's a great, well-crafted offer. I think also there can be strategies, though, in more of a buyer's market where you are saying, we'll give you your asking price, but we want all of these big things and we want to know pretty quickly, or else we're going to give you 50 grand less.
Right.
Because this offer is only good for this time. So again, I think that response date can really be some sort of a tool where you want to rely on your realtor to help you understand what's the market doing right now, how is my offer going to feel to a seller, right? You want to really think about the other side because, right, it takes two parties to buy a house and sell a house. And so I know something that I've used for my buyers is when I am writing an offer that maybe we're asking for $25,000 off of their asking and we want $20,000 in seller credits. So we're essentially asking for $45,000 off, which that can probably feel like Kaila, a gut punch. I know. But I'm going to give them the weekend to think about it because the house has been on the market for the last 4 months. Maybe they're ready to just get moving, and I don't want to force their hand. I want them to really have time to think about how can they make this work or what could work for them. So again, very different strategies to use that date for what the situation is.
And as your representative, Mr., Mrs., Ms. Buyer, we also will likely I will absolutely give the listing agent a call and ask if there's other offers. Maybe even they're currently negotiating offer. Well, what's the response time on that offer? Or what's your response time on other offers? Because we need to know that. That's going to help us formulate our response time.
And that's a lot of the things, again, we'd say a little bit, what are realtors doing in the background? So maybe that's a great way. We've gone through, let's say, the main pieces of the buy sell. So again, on the backside, what your realtor should be doing for you is calling that agent and seeing how much activity has been on the house. And what maybe sometimes to me, I'm like, hey, we want this purchase price. But if your client needs 60 days to move out, no problem. We're not in any rush. That's not a hardship for my buyers. So we're happy to give you that extra time if it would help your sellers feel a little bit better about it. There's a lot of different strategies. I would say my job is to sell stories and to talk about stories. So any single time I'm writing an offer or reviewing an offer, you better believe I have spoken to that agent on the phone. Always. Sure. Non-negotiable for me.
For sure. I think that when I would never write an offer without calling the list agent, because
it happens. Sorry to interrupt, but the last 2 offers I received, I didn't get a single call.
Right.
But I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, tell me about your buyers. What do they've got going on? Right. Tell me a little bit about their story. Because that not only helps me understand, again, who might be buying the home, but then I can understand that and help my seller formulate the best decision for themselves.
Right. Well, and we started response time, and then this is background. Well, I have sellers right now that are in California, and they're older, and they really like to sit and talk about things together. And if one of them's at the doctor, we can't respond in 4 hours. you could be at the doctor for 2 weeks, or maybe one of them, which has happened, right, is in the hospital.
Yes.
Right. These are things that, hey, you know what? Yes, he's conscious, but he's in the hospital. You're going to have to give us 3 days to respond. Fine, no problem. Now we understand. Are there any other offers on the table? But I think as your representative, as your buyer's agent, definitely we're calling the list agent to see what else is happening. It might even say, hey, we've had 3 offers at this number in the past and that didn't fly.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to do better than that, or I hope that your offer is better than that, or it's probably not going to fly either.
Because then again, we don't want to waste your time. It takes a little bit. You're reviewing documents, you're e-signing. Again, you might be getting
excited.
You might be doing all this while you're also, again, trying to work or be with your family or be on vacation. Life is still very much happening. And so we just want to make sure that, again, we're not only respecting your time, we're also respecting the listing agent, the sellers, and our time as well. I think, again, picking up the phone is such an easy thing. It goes a very long way.
Yes.
So doing that, I also really like to call the lender. So again, as a buyer agent, of course, I'm going to call the lender and see, hey, based off of what you know from where they're at, what would be better? Do we want to get the purchase price as low as possible, or do we want to try and ask for more in seller credits? Money off to a seller, either in a purchase price or in seller credits, it's just money out of their pocket. It does not matter to them how it's spent. But for you as a buyer, those two different structures can make a huge difference in either your cash out of your pocket to close or your monthly payments. So again, I want to be really informed about what structure of offer would be best for you.
Well, and along with talking to the lender, are they capable of getting it closed in 30 days?
Yes.
Sometimes I might say, hey, this loan's been taking a long time. I'm not sure why. Or, we're doing a Veterans Administration loan, a VA loan. And so that requires the appraisal to have an appraiser to have a certain certification. There's only 3 of those in the Valley. So it might take a while to get that appraisal. So can you please put the close out for 45 days? Sure. And then when the listing agent calls me back and says, hey, why does this offer say 45-day close? I can say, because the lender told me. And then they,
for these reasons, right? We always want to sell that story.
Right.
It's not just an arbitrary number that we've put out there. There's reasons why we're choosing and helping craft these offers.
Right.
And again, to me, a well-crafted offer in the beginning, just it sets the tone for the rest of the deal, hopefully.
Dates are important. As we've said, it's not cool to miss your close date. And this happened to me personally in one of my many home sales. It was scheduled to close on June 19th, which is now an official federal holiday. So we could not.
Yeah.
Nobody realized it until 3 days before close. So that one snuck up on you. So again, looking at your calendar, looking at your dates, knowing what you're capable of, talking to the lender, hey, do you guys have any banking holidays between now and then that we should consider that might slow the process?
I put a deal together right before Christmas. And so I had a 3-week inspection period because I was like, between Christmas Eve, Christmas, and then New Year's, I just don't know. It really can add up in that time frame. And I told the other agent that, and she was like, no problem. We understand. Thanks for making it happen. We're happy to give you that. And we closed on that last Tuesday. So
also, not necessarily a national holiday, but hunting season can sometimes affect inspectors' availability or bankers' availability. So we just have to be cognizant of all these things.
I think, again, so many moving pieces, but that is where, again, hopefully you've built that trust with your realtor, right? You've been working with them and you that they're professionals and have a grasp on what pieces you can toggle with and what pieces really matter. And in my mind, it is, I would say, relatively simple, right? I don't think if you're offering a ton of earnest money, you're not going to get some crazy deal on your purchase price. That to me, that's not really,
it doesn't equate.
It's not a big thing from the seller side, right? So again, always important to really think about it from a seller side. I know I've had people ask me, well, are you a buyer's agent or are you a seller's agent?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I do both, because you need to see both sides of it. Because again, we're all working towards the same goal. Somebody wants to buy a house, somebody wants to sell a house. How do we come together to make that happen? So,
well, and you said this to me before, Kaila, as a writing an offer for a buyer, I might say something to you, hey, that big earnest money check is not going to matter to the seller at all. And then you might say, well, why do we care about what the seller thinks?
whose side are you on?
Well, because they have to accept our offer. Like, we are working together. So if that doesn't benefit them, then keep it in your pocket until close or whatever. Also, I think it's important to remember that when you tell me you want to buy a house, I want to help you get that house. And if I say to you, hey, this buyer needs to stay in the house for an extra 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay with you if we move the close date 10 days? It's not because I'm working for them. It's because you told me you wanted this house and that guy needs 10 more days.
Yeah.
Are you willing to give it to them or not? It depends on how much you want the house. But know that I am delivering the message. I am not working for the seller. I am working for you.
It's such a great point. And again, can happen on either side of the transaction where sometimes people question who's working for who. And it really is a collaboration, right? And so knowing that when you're making a recommendation, or even not a recommendation, but offering a different side, what can we work with together? How do we make this happen? Because again, everybody has the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's all I have. I don't know if well, I guess one other thing I do want to chat about is, again, sometimes when we're crafting those offers, if it's a really busy time, let's say it's spring and we have had great weather in Montana, that always seems to correlate with a really busy buyer season. I might be calling a home inspector or two to make sure that they can get us in within 2 weeks, because occasionally they are booked 2 weeks out and we want to make sure that we have a day or two at least to go over that inspection.
Right.
So that you're not totally bumped up against that. So again, sometimes I'm calling a home inspector too and making sure that they've got availability to do those home inspections for us in the time frame that we're requesting. Again, that can also help your offer stand out amongst other offers if that is the case, where I can then of course call that listing agent and say, here's our offer. I have inspections tentatively scheduled for this date.
Exactly.
We're
can get
ready.
this done.
Yep. So I don't know, is there anything else that you
I would just
are
say,
thinking?
and we always do this, but I would just say, remember when I hand you those, or when Kaila or whoever you're working with hands you those blank buyer documents, please do look them over. It does get very exciting, but we need you to at least have, as much as we love for you to trust us, we also need you to have looked at things. And if you have questions about what's happening or what's going on, you need to have looked at that paperwork.
I can't answer questions I don't get asked.
Right.
That's what I say. So to me, you do. And again, a phrase I always like to tell my clients is, to me, while we are responsible for these dates and we're the ones that are helping you execute on them, you need to be aware and included in the process, because it is your money, your lifestyle. You are the one that is purchasing this home. And so I can help you, but you very much need to be aware and included. And so if there ever is something that you're not understanding, ask questions. You should always feel comfortable asking questions of your realtor. There's no dumb questions. We've heard them all before. And it's very much a part of the job. It just be open and help you feel like you're not just along for the ride, but you're in the driver's seat with somebody who can help. Yeah. And so whenever I send a contract, I always text my clients and say, hey, just sent the buy sell for your review and signatures.
Right.
Review and sign it.
Yes, please.
So
remember that. We're not trying to make it hard or give you homework.
no,
We just want you involved. We've done this 100 times or more.
Gosh, getting up there.
But it's not new to us. That doesn't make it boring, certainly. But we are comfortable with what we do for a living on a daily basis. You're probably doing this maybe 5 times total in your life. And we want you to be comfortable with it. Maybe this is a new state that you're buying or selling in. Be comfortable with the documents, please. Yeah.
Any questions you have, feel free to shoot us a text, send us an email. Our contact info is all over the place. You can leave a comment. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We will have a couple more videos coming out of just walking buyers through the home buying process. So we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.